We had to live with my parents together for a little while. We would have preferred to obviously live alone or together, even if that meant renting, but I guess the sacrifice was that we just had to stay with my parents just to continue saving. Eltham's close to my parents, which is one of the reasons why we picked the suburb. And we also chose it because we knew that we would be able to afford our own house on our own land rather than buying a unit closer into the city. We definitely wanted our own house. We didn't want to have to deal with a body corporate or deal with other neighbours living on our block of land. We wanted to be in control of our own house, so that's why we chose a house out in the suburbs.
So when we were looking for the house, we initially started looking in the city for what we wanted, but we couldn't afford it. So the further we moved out, the more affordable it became. And we eventually settled on Eltham because that's where everything met together and it's where we could afford what we wanted.
The bank that we spoke to was the NAB, and they were pretty helpful. We went and met them in the city and we spoke to a personal banker. We went through all of our finances with them. They were quite helpful, but they were prepared to lend us a lot more money than we thought. And we had to really be careful with that, because if we had borrowed what they were allowing us to borrow, we wouldn't be able to live the lifestyle that we would want to live. So we had to actually make a conscious decision not to actually borrow as much as they would let us, so that we could actually afford to eat and go out and keep doing the things that we were doing and not just be paying a mortgage and that's it.
Yeah, stick towards the bottom end of what they're prepared to offer you in terms of lending, because they'll let you borrow whatever you want, but the lower you can stay, the better it is long term. At the time we purchased, it was the 50% reduction in first homeowner stamp duty. So we saved about $12,000, which was handy. The $10,000 that we had to pay went straight onto the home loan. So we saved 12 grand, which was helpful.
One of my tips for first home buyers would be to get somebody else to bid on your behalf at an auction, so that you don't make emotional decisions on the spot. We actually exceeded our budget at auction because we were both there and we did the bidding and we got a bit carried away. So I'd definitely recommend getting a family member or a friend to go to an auction on your behalf and bid so that they stick to your maximum. I think as well, in the search process, I'd say expand your search from the beginning. We started off in a very sort of confined area and some specific suburbs, and it wasn't until time passed and we realised we couldn't afford those suburbs that we started to look outside. So I think you need to start with a broader area when you first start to look for a house.
All right, so in terms of the overall process and how we ended up buying, we ended up being successful with the property we purchased, but when we initially looked at the house, we weren't interested. We then had a look at a variety of houses around there and realised that this was probably the best one suited to us. And then, as we said before, we were successful enough to purchase it, and we're happy now. The overall process was fine, but there's not many people willing to help. Everybody's all the real estate agents are very vague about the prices and terms and stuff. So it's handy if you have somebody who knows what they're talking about and can negotiate on your behalf to save you some money.
Dealing with banks is also hard. They speak a lot of jargon. They talk a lot about financial stuff that if you haven't been through this before, you're not aware of. So it definitely helps to speak to someone else. We spoke to our parents, I guess, who have been through this process many times. So it's good to get advice off someone who's actually been through it, because the banks, whilst they're looking to lend you money, they're not so helpful in terms of giving advice.